Hey, Moyo Nation. We Moyo everywhere we go. How many people woke up this morning and said, I will do what I know so I can see how far I will go? That's what I asked you to do. Yesterday we talked about this chasm between what we know we should do and what we actually do. And I said that the difference between average and greatness is if we can cross that chasm and actually start doing what we know we need to do. I gave you this picture like you're standing on this cliff, and the cliff is, I know what to do. But across this huge chasm, on the other side, there's another cliff that's I do. So we stand on I know, but the question is, how do we get to I do? How do we cross that chasm? So many people know what they need to do. Yesterday I gave you the examples of hoping you can make an A in a class and knowing you need to study, but do you study? Gave you an example of being at work, of reconciling with a friend. How do we cross that chasm? And it made me think, when people climb Mount Everest, if you ever watch the documentaries or the videos, they come to an area called the Khumbu Icefall. And in the icefall, there's these huge chasms that are called crevasses. And to get from one side to the other, they need these ladders that they walk across. And that's kind of the idea of this, is that we're on one side of this chasm and we got to get to the other side. We got to have some form of a ladder or a bridge to get us across. And you look at the chasm and decide how wide this chasm is, and that's going to tell you how long, how big of a ladder you're going to need to get across. And here's one thing I will promise you: anything that's really worth doing, anything that's really going to stretch your potential, going to bring you greatness, is going to be a pretty wide chasm. You're going to need a pretty big ladder. So this chasm, you got to know how big it is. And then you got to decide how bad you want to get across that chasm. How bad do you want to achieve that thing you're trying to achieve? And so here's the question: how big is your how bad? How big is your how bad you want it? If your how bad you want it is big enough, you can cross that chasm. But if it's not, you'll never cross it. I'm gonna give you a couple examples. A number of years ago, my goal was to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon so bad, but there was this gap between what my speed was then and what I needed my speed to be to qualify. And I knew it was a big chasm. So the question came down to, how big was my how bad do I want it? And when I got to the point that how bad do I want it was big enough, then I did the work. I knew I had to put in time. I knew I had to run sprint intervals. I knew I had to do hill repeats. But unless I wanted it bad enough, unless that desire was there, that passion was there, I wasn't going to do it. I was going to stay on this side of the chasm. But when my how bad got big enough, then I did the work. And that's what it took. And that's how it is with everything in your life. How big is your how bad? Is it big enough? You know, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to bridging that gap, comes down to desire. If you want that thing, that achievement, that quality bad enough, if you desire it bad enough, then the work it takes is worth it. And you'll do it. And you'll bridge that gap. That's what it comes down to. So the question that you got to answer is, how big is your how bad? If your how bad is big enough to cross that chasm, you'll do it. But if you just kind of want to do something, your how big's not bad enough, and you're not going to put the work in to get it done. You're going to stand on the I know side, because the truth is, we know what it takes, whatever we desire, whatever goal we want to achieve, we know what it takes. But do we want to work hard enough to do that? If the desire's not there, if the passion's not there, the how bad is not big enough to cross the chasm to the I do and I succeed. So, again, when you wake up, you got to tell yourself, I will do what I know so that I can see how far I will go, because my how bad is big enough to cross the chasm. And now let's mow everywhere we go.